Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee with everything that's been going on with the shortages, inflation, the economy not doing so good. Stock market's been really down the last couple of days. I wanted to show you guys some substitutions in cooking that were very prevalent when I was a kid growing up, and some of these I still use today. 3 of these are ones that I seen when I was a kid, and one of them is my own substitution. And the old timers always had a way of figuring out how to stretch things and to make things get more for less, basically. And the first thing here is potatoes. Potatoes were never wasted. So if they cooked or mashed potatoes, if they had cooked potatoes, they would either fry them or they would mash them up and they would add them into something else. And that made all kinds of stuff, from hash to adding into baking items. And potatoes especially were added into baked items, stuff like pancakes, biscuits, bread. And they would do that to stretch the flour and the mixes that they had to make that stuff go further. To base, if you threw a potato in with your, pancakes or your biscuit mix, or if you were mixing something up from scratch, like making a loaf of bread, if you mash up a potato really, really fine and mix it into the bread, make like a potato bread, you had a heavier, solid, more hearty bread. And that was the first thing that I seen a lot of. And another thing was making chocolate stuff. There was a lot of recipes that that called for baking chocolate. And baking chocolate, that was just a complete luxury. Nobody had baking chocolate when I was a kid growing up, but a lot of recipes called for it. Stuff like brownies, chocolate muffins, chocolate cake would call for baking chocolate. So the old timers, they would mix up a tablespoonful of butter and about 3 tablespoons of cocoa, because cocoa was actually cheap and it was fairly prevalent. Pretty much everybody had cocoa. They would mix 3 tablespoons of cocoa in with a tablespoon of butter, and that would be their baking chocolate that they would use in their recipes for brownies or whatever. And the last thing here is sour milk, buttermilk, and sour cream. Again, sour cream, like what we buy today in the containers, that was a complete luxury. Nobody had that back then. But a lot of recipes would call for sour milk, buttermilk, or sour cream. So the old timers, they would sour the milk, and how they would sour the milk is they would put vinegar into the milk. And this was used in just a wide array of recipes. It was used in pancakes, it was used in biscuits, it was used in quick bread, stuff like banana breads, cornbread like what I'm going to show you right here. It was used in regular breads. Anything that called for buttermilk or sour milk, they would just sour the milk. And how they would do that is they would take a cup of milk and they would add a tablespoon of vinegar into it. And you can use whatever vinegar you got. I've used cider vinegar. I used white vinegar here today in this. And basically, when you pour that vinegar into it, it's going to curdle or sour the milk. Sometimes the milk will separate, but generally the milk will just get a little bit thicker than what it would normally be, and then you can add that into your recipe. And I'm going to mix you up a cornbread here. One of the cornbreads mixes that we use here quite a bit. It's a gluten-free one. This one's actually really good, but you can use it with any cornbread or quick bread recipe, like this Jiffy here. That'll call for milk. This says only 1/3 of a cup of milk, so then I'd start with maybe a teaspoon of vinegar into the 1/3 of a cup of milk to sour that. And it doesn't make the recipe sour in any way, shape, or form, but it reacts with that baking powder, baking soda that are in the mixes, or what you would put in if you're doing it from scratch to make it a nice, light, fluffy quick bread. And the last one here is taco seasoning. Taco seasoning is one thing that we just use a ton of. We use it for a ton of different recipes, whether it's chicken fajitas, or we're making black bean soup, or we're making some type of side dish, refried beans, whatever. But sometimes you don't have it. And there's been times when I've been over to other people's houses and stuff, and they were making something, and they needed taco seasoning, and they didn't have any taco seasoning, so I would mix up taco seasoning. And taco seasoning is basically these 6 ingredients. It's paprika, it's onion powder, it's oregano leaves, chili powder, cumin, and garlic powder in different you know, amounts. So it's kind of something that you have to play with. Start with those ingredients there. Then of course you just season your meat or whatever you want with your salt and pepper, and then you would add a combination of those ingredients in. Like I said, sometimes you don't have the little packages of taco seasoning. They're very expensive, so you can actually mix it up from the actual ingredients that you have. Play around with it and get the flavor that you like. But I'm going to mix you up this cornbread here. This is this Krusty's gluten-free cornbread that we make here a lot, and it calls for, I already got it in the bowl here, it calls for an egg, and it calls for a cup of milk, but I'm actually using this soured milk here that I made up. I'll put that in there. And then it calls for a third of a cup of shortening, and I'm actually using melted butter for this. And all we're going to do is we're going to do a quick stir on this here. It's going to make a real loose batter. Already see the kind of the bubbles starting to form in this, and that's the reaction from the sour milk and the leavening agent that they got in that mix. Like I said, you can use this technique for mixes, and you can also use it with scratch recipes. Off there. And now I got my pre-greased silicone baking dish here, a little 8x8 guy. Spread this out. Now we're going to get this in a 350-degree oven for about a half an hour, and then when this is baked, I'm going to take it out. I'm going to show you what the final cornbread's going to look like with the buttermilk, or with the homemade buttermilk, basically from the vinegar and from the milk that I mixed together to make the sour milk. All right, guys, it's been the 30 minutes. The cornbread is done. You can see here it's separated from the silicone pan here nicely. We're going to cut a little piece here, show you what the homemade sour milk did for this box cornbread recipe here. You can see it's nice and fluffy. Let's see if we can cut it here. You can see it's got a nice texture to it, steam coming off it. It just came out of the oven. We're going to try a little piece out here. A little pat of butter on it. Try it while it's still warm. These recipes are just always so moist when you use this homemade sour milk in them. It gives it a really good flavor. It really makes a light and fluffy quick bread, cornbread. Just a great substitute. It works, stretches your I guess your food budget. You don't have to spend money on stuff like buttermilk and sour cream when you're making these recipes. You can just make it yourself, save money, use up some of the ingredients that you have that already in your pantry. But anyway, just wanted to share these tips from the old timers with you guys here today. Hope you got something out of it. Just another tool you can add to your toolbox as times get tough. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee. I appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys get a little information, a little entertainment out of my videos, and you guys have a great day.